The sky turned black on Tuesday morning. People in New York looked up from their coffee cups and watched as giant ships blocked out the sun. The ships were like nothing humans had ever seen before. They looked like floating crystals, each one the size of a city block. They made no sound as they moved through the air. Maria Santos was walking to work when the first ship appeared over Manhattan. She stopped in the middle of the street, her mouth open. Around her, other people did the same thing. Cars stopped moving. Horns stopped honking. The whole city went quiet. The ships hung in the air for 3 hours. Television news crews pointed their cameras at them. Scientists tried to make contact. Military jets flew close to take pictures. Nothing happened. The ships just waited. Then they began to speak. The voice came from everywhere at once. It spoke in perfect English, but also in every other language on Earth at the same time. Every person heard it in their own language, inside their head. "People of Earth," the voice said, "we are the Zephyrian Empire. Your world now belongs to us." General Rebecca Hayes was in the Pentagon when the message came. She had been a soldier for 20 years. She had fought in wars and seen terrible things. But this was different. This was something she had never trained for. "What do they want?" asked President Williams over the video call. "We don't know yet, sir," General Hayes replied. "But we need to be ready for anything." The answer came an hour later. Ships appeared over every major city on Earth. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Cairo, Sydney. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. They covered the sky like a gray blanket. The voice spoke again. "You will not fight us. You cannot fight us. Your weapons are toys to us. Your armies are children playing war games. We have crossed the galaxy to find you. We have watched you for many years. You are perfect for what we need." In a small town in Ohio, Farmer John Mitchell grabbed his hunting rifle and ran outside. He aimed it at the ship floating over his cornfield. The rifle felt heavy and useless in his hands. The ship was so big, so quiet. It made him feel like an ant looking up at a giant. He pulled the trigger anyway. The bullet hit the ship and bounced off like it was made of rubber. A blue light came down from the ship and touched John. He felt his mind go fuzzy. His arms and legs stopped working. He fell to the ground and could not get up. The same thing happened everywhere. Soldiers tried to fight. Pilots tried to attack the ships with jets and missiles. Nothing worked. The Zephyrian ships had shields that stopped every weapon. Worse, they had some kind of power that could control human minds. Dr. Elizabeth Chun was a scientist at MIT. She was studying the alien ships when the blue light hit her lab. She felt her thoughts become slow and thick like honey. She tried to run, but her legs would not move. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. "Do not be afraid," the voice said in her head. "You will not be harmed. You are too valuable to harm." The invasion lasted 6 days. Not because the aliens needed that long to win. They won in the first hour. It took 6 days because they wanted to be careful. They did not want to break their new toys. On the 6th day, the leaders of Earth met with the aliens for the first time. President Williams, Prime Minister Chun, Chancellor Mueller, and 50 other world leaders gathered in a large room in Geneva. They sat at a long table and waited. The Zephyrian who entered the room was not what they expected. It looked almost human, but taller and thinner. Its skin was pale blue and seemed to glow from inside. Its eyes were completely black, like holes in its face. When it walked, it made no sound. "I am Commander Vextar," it said. Its voice was smooth and cold. "I speak for the Zephyrian Empire. Your world is now part of our empire. You are now our property." President Williams stood up. His face was red with anger. "We will never accept this. Humanity will never bow to you." Commander Vextar looked at him with those black eyes. "You will, because you have no choice. Your species is perfect for what we need. You are strong enough to work hard. You are smart enough to learn. You breed quickly and live long enough to be useful. Most important, you adapt to any environment we put you in. What do you want from us? Asked Prime Minister Chun. Workers, Vextar replied. The Empire spans 1,000 worlds. We need workers to dig our mines, build our cities, grow our food. Other species we have conquered were too weak or too stupid. Some fought us until we had to destroy them all. You are different. You are valuable. You want to make us slaves, said Chancellor Mueller. Yes, Vextar said simply. That is exactly what we want. Earth will become a training ground. Your young will learn to serve us. Your strong will work on our factory worlds. Your smart will help us build new technologies. This is not a negotiation. This is how things will be. The world leaders looked at each other. Some were angry. Some were scared. All of them felt helpless. And if we refuse? President Williams asked. Commander Vextar smiled. It was not a kind smile. Then we will find another species to replace you. Your choice is simple. Serve us and live, or refuse and die. Choose now. The room was quiet for a long time. Outside, alien ships waited in the sky like patient predators. Around the world, 7 billion humans waited to learn their fate. President Williams sat down heavily in his chair. We choose to live, he said quietly. Commander Vextar nodded. Good. The ships will begin loading your people tomorrow. Welcome to the Zephyrian Empire. That night, as the alien ships prepared to take the first humans away from Earth, nobody knew that this was not the end of humanity's story. It was only the beginning. 50 years had passed since the ships came. Sarah Chun was born on Kepler 442, an asteroid mining station floating in the cold darkness between stars. She had never seen Earth. She had never seen a real sun or breathed air. That did not taste like metal and machines. Sarah was an engineer. The Zephyrians had tested her when she was 12 and found she was good with numbers and machines. They put her to work fixing the giant drilling equipment that carved minerals from the asteroids. She worked 16 hours every day. She slept in a room the size of a closet with 3 other human women. The Zephyrians thought Sarah was just another slave. They were wrong. Every day, Sarah watched the alien guards. She studied how their weapons worked. She memorized the patterns of their patrol routes. She noticed things that other humans missed, like how the guards always stayed away from the deep drilling sites during the 3rd shift, like how their mind control devices needed to recharge every 6 hours. Most important, Sarah noticed that something was happening to the humans who worked near the exotic radiation deep in the mines. Tommy Vasquez was one of those workers. He had been mining the deep tunnels for 10 years. The radiation was supposed to make humans sick. The Zephyrians said it would make the workers more obedient and easier to control. But Tommy was different now. When the guards tried to use their mind control on him, nothing happened. His eyes stayed clear and focused. Sarah, Tommy whispered during lunch break. I need to tell you something. They sat in the corner of the eating hall, away from the other workers. The guards could not hear them over the noise of the machines. The deep mining is changing us, Tommy said quietly. Not just me, all of us who work down there. The radiation does something to our brains, makes us think clearer, makes us remember things better. Sarah looked at him carefully. Tommy's eyes were brighter than she remembered. He sat straighter. Even his voice sounded different. How many others? She asked. 15 of us work the deep mines. All 15 are changing. And Sarah, we have been talking, planning. Sarah felt her heart beat faster. Planning was dangerous. If the Zephyrians found out, they would be killed. Or worse, sent to the punishment worlds where humans were worked to death in a few months. What kind of planning? She asked. Tommy smiled. It was the first real smile Sarah had seen in years. The kind that starts with freedom and ends with payback. Over the next few months, Sarah learned the truth. The exotic radiation that powered Zephyrian technology was slowly changing human DNA. The aliens thought it was making humans more docile. They were wrong. It was making humans immune to mind control. More than that, it was making them smarter. Faster, stronger. The changes were small at first. Workers could remember longer sequences of numbers. They could work for hours without getting tired. They could see patterns in the alien technology that they had never noticed before. But the Zephyrians only saw what they wanted to see. Humans working quietly. Humans following orders. Humans who seemed to have given up hope. Sarah began meeting with the changed humans in secret. They met in the abandoned sections of the mining station, places where the life support barely worked, and the guards never went. By the end of the year, their group had grown to 50 people. Marcus Torres was one of the newest members. He had been a construction slave on 3 different worlds before being transferred to Kepler 442. He was big and strong, with hands like hammers and a voice that could be heard across a construction site. The radiation was changing him too, but in different ways than the others. "I can feel them," Marcus said during one of their secret meetings. "The Zephyrians. When they try to get inside my head, I can feel it happening, and I can push back." "What? Do you mean push back?" asked Sarah. Marcus closed his eyes and concentrated. Across the room, a Zephyrian guard's weapon suddenly stopped working. The alien looked confused and tried to restart it, but nothing happened. "I can interfere with their technology," Marcus said. "Not much yet, but it is getting stronger every day." The group realized they were not alone. Secret messages began reaching them from other mining stations, other slave worlds. Humans everywhere were changing. The Zephyrian Empire had made a terrible mistake. By exposing millions of humans to their exotic technology, they had accidentally created exactly the thing they feared most: humans who could not be controlled. Dr. Elizabeth Chen was still alive. She was now 68 years old and worked as a science slave on a research station near the Galactic Rim. The Zephyrians had kept her alive because her brain was useful for solving complex problems. They did not know that her brain was becoming more useful every day. Elizabeth had been exposed to more exotic radiation than almost any other human. She could now understand Zephyrian technology better than most Zephyrians. She had been secretly building devices in her laboratory. Small things at first. A communication device that could send messages faster than light. A scanner that could detect Zephyrian ships from vast distances. But her greatest creation was something the aliens would never expect: a virus. Not a biological virus, but a computer virus designed specifically to attack Zephyrian systems. She had been working on it for 5 years, hiding it inside routine research reports. On Kepler 442, Sarah's group had grown to 200 people. They had learned to hide their changes from the guards. They had learned to communicate using codes hidden in their work reports. Most important, they had learned to steal. Every day, they took small pieces of Zephyrian technology. A circuit here, a power cell there, a piece of armor plating from the recycling center. The guards never noticed. The pieces were too small, too common. But Sarah and her engineers were putting them together into something else. Something that would change everything. How much longer? Asked Tommy during their latest meeting. Sarah looked at the device they had been building. It was the size of a briefcase and covered with alien symbols. It hummed quietly with stored energy. 2 more weeks, she said. 2 more weeks and we will have enough power to send a message to every human slave in the galaxy. What will the message say? Asked Marcus. Sarah smiled. It was the same kind of smile that Tommy had given her a year ago. The smile of someone who remembered what hope felt like. It will say that the time for being slaves is over. It will say that the time for being human has begun again. None of them knew that across the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, other humans were building other devices, planning other rebellions, preparing for the same moment. The Zephyrians had scattered humanity across the stars, thinking it would make them weak and divided. Instead, they had given humanity the greatest gift possible: time to adapt, time to learn, and time to become something the aliens had never imagined. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they stopped being afraid. The signal went out on a Tuesday morning, exactly 51 years after the first ships arrived at Earth. Sarah Chun pressed the button on her hidden device and watched as the message spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every human slave on every world would receive it at exactly the same moment. The message was simple: today we remember who we are. On 17 different worlds, in mining stations and factory complexes and agricultural colonies, 50,000 humans suddenly stopped working. They put down their tools. They turned off their machines. They looked their alien masters in the eyes and said one word: no. Commander Vextar was inspecting a titanium processing facility on Rigel Prime when it happened. He was walking through the factory floor, watching hundreds of human slaves work the massive smelting machines. Everything looked normal. Then every human in the building stopped moving. "Return to work," Vextar commanded, his mind control device glowing blue. The humans did not move. They stood perfectly still, looking at him with clear, unafraid eyes. "I said return to work," Vextar shouted, turning his device to maximum power. A human woman stepped forward. She was small and thin, her clothes dirty from years of factory work, but her eyes were bright and intelligent. "We heard you," she said calmly. "We choose not to obey." Vextar felt something he had not felt in many years: fear. This was impossible. No species could resist Zephyrian mind control. He had conquered 100 worlds and enslaved 50 different alien races. None of them had ever been able to say no. "Kill them," he ordered his guards. The guards raised their energy weapons. But before they could fire, something impossible happened. Their weapons stopped working. The power cells went dead. The targeting systems failed. Every piece of Zephyrian technology in the building suddenly became useless metal and crystal. Marcus Torres walked out from behind one of the smelting machines. He was bigger than Vextar remembered, his muscles thick from years of hard labor. More important, there was something different about his eyes. They seemed to glow with their own inner light. "Surprised?" Marcus asked. "You should be. You taught us well. You taught us how your technology works. You taught us how to build it. You just never thought we would learn how to break it." Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out on world after world. On Kepler 442, Tommy Vasquez and his deep miners had taken control of the drilling station. The Zephyrian guards found their weapons useless, their communication systems dead, their ships unable to start. Sarah Chun stood in the command center, her fingers dancing over controls that had once belonged to their captors. She had spent years learning how these systems worked. Now she was turning them against their creators. "Send the signal to the other stations," she told her team. "Tell them we are free. Tell them to begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was the part the Zephyrians would never see coming. For 50 years, humans had been building things. Small things, hidden things, weapons disguised as mining equipment, and communication devices hidden inside food processors. But most important, they had been building ships. The ships were not like anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were built from salvaged Zephyrian technology, but improved and changed by human engineering. They were faster than Zephyrian ships. They were stronger. They were controlled by humans who could not be mind-controlled and who understood alien technology better than the aliens themselves. Dr. Elizabeth Chen activated her masterpiece from her laboratory on the research station. The computer virus she had spent 5 years creating spread through the Zephyrian network like wildfire. Ship systems failed. Weapon platforms went offline. Communication networks collapsed. But the virus did more than just break things. It also sent information. Detailed plans of every Zephyrian military base. The locations of every slave world. The weaknesses in every alien ship design. Suddenly, every human in the galaxy knew exactly where to strike and how to win. On Proxima Centauri Industrial Complex, the largest manufacturing center in the galaxy, 20,000 human slaves had turned into 20,000 soldiers overnight. They had weapons now, built in secret over many years. They had vehicles, constructed from stolen parts and hidden in abandoned warehouses. Most important, they had a plan. The complex was run by Overlord Zexenith, one of the most powerful Zephyrians. In the Empire, he commanded from a floating fortress that hovered above the factory floors. The fortress was supposed to be impregnable, protected by energy shields and automated defense systems. That Sarah Chun's cousin David led the attack on the fortress. He had been a construction slave for 30 years, building the same kinds of buildings that he was now preparing to destroy. But the radiation had changed him just like it had changed all the others. He could think faster now, see patterns that others missed, solve problems that had once seemed impossible. Remember, David told his strike team as they prepared to launch, they think we are still animals in cages. They think we are too stupid and too weak to fight back. Let's show them how wrong they are. The attack began at dawn. Human-built aircraft rose from hidden launch bays scattered across the complex. They moved in perfect coordination, each pilot knowing exactly where the others would be without needing to communicate. The radiation had done more than make them immune to mind control. It had created a kind of shared consciousness, a network of human minds working together toward a single goal. The Zephyrian defenses opened fire, but their targeting systems had been infected by Elizabeth's virus. Their shots went wide. Their missiles exploded harmlessly in empty space. The human ships slipped through their defenses like ghosts. Overlord Zexenith watched in horror as his impregnable fortress came under attack. These were supposed to be slaves, ignorant animals fit only for manual labor. But they were flying ships with a skill that matched his best pilots. They were using tactics that he had never seen before. They were fighting like they had been born for war. How is this possible? He demanded of his aide. Sir, we are receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human slave populations on 17 worlds have revolted simultaneously. They have taken control of mining stations, factory complexes, and agricultural colonies. Sir, they appear to have been planning this for years. The fortress shook as human weapons found their mark. The shields flickered and failed. Through the command center windows, Zexenith could see human soldiers landing on his fortress, cutting through the hull with tools that looked suspiciously like modified mining equipment. Send word to the capital, he ordered. Tell them that the humans are no longer slaves. Tell them that somehow, impossibly, they have become our enemies. But the communication systems were dead. The virus had seen to that. Across the galaxy, Zephyrian commanders were discovering the same thing. They were cut off, isolated, facing an enemy they had created but never understood. The humans were no longer asking for freedom. They were taking it. And they were just getting started. On Earth, the first human ships began landing in the cities where it had all begun 51 years before. The crews that stepped out were not the same species that had been enslaved. They were something new, something the galaxy had never seen. They were humanity unleashed, and they were very, very angry. The war lasted 3 years. But for the Zephyrian Empire, it felt like 300. General Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the human warship Defiance, watching Zephyrian ships burn in the void of space. 2 years ago, he had been a construction slave building alien cities. Now he commanded the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Marcus had danged more than most humans. The radiation had made him stronger and faster, but it had also given him something else, the ability to understand war in ways that no Zephyrian could match. He could see patterns in battle that took the aliens hours to recognize. He could predict their moves before they made them. "Sir, the enemy fleet is retreating toward the Vega system," reported his aide, a former mining engineer named Lisa Park. "Let them go," Marcus said. "They will only bring word of what happened here to their commanders. Fear is our best weapon now." The Zephyrians had made their first mistake by underestimating humanity. They made their second mistake by trying to fight humans like they fought other alien species. They used the same tactics, the same weapons, the same strategies that had won them 1,000 worlds. Against humans, none of it worked. Sarah Chun had become something the galaxy had never seen, a human who understood alien technology better than the aliens themselves. She worked from a hidden base in the asteroid belt, designing new weapons and ships that combined the best of human engineering with stolen Zephyrian technology. Her latest creation was the quantum disruptor, a weapon that could phase shift through Zephyrian shields and armor like they were made of paper. The aliens had no defense against it because they had never imagined such a thing was possible. "The Rigel defense fleet has been destroyed," Sarah reported during the daily command meeting. "Their quantum shields were useless against our new weapons. How many ships did we lose?" asked Admiral Elizabeth Chen, who had lived long enough to see her people go from slaves to conquerors. "None," Sarah replied. "The battle lasted 18 minutes. We took no casualties." Elizabeth nodded grimly. She remembered when humans had fought with primitive nuclear weapons and chemical rockets. Now they wielded technologies that made Zephyrian science look like stone tools. The transformation had been terrifying to watch, even for someone who helped create it. But the humans were not content with just fighting the Zephyrians. They were learning from every battle, adapting to every new weapon, evolving faster than their enemies could keep up with. When the aliens deployed bioweapons, humans developed immunity within weeks. When they used quantum disruptors, humans learned to phase shift their attacks in response. Most frightening of all, humans were teaching other species to fight. The Kalari had been enslaved for 300 years before humans arrived in their star system. They were a peaceful species that had never known war. But when human ships appeared in their skies, offering freedom and weapons, the Kalari learned quickly. Commander Thexari was the first Kalari to join the human fleet. She had been a servant in a Zephyrian palace, invisible and ignored. Now she piloted a human-designed fighter that could outmaneuver anything the Empire could build. "The humans are different from any species we have encountered," she reported to her people during a secret meeting. "They do not seek to replace the Zephyrians as our masters. They seek to make us strong enough to never be slaves again." The Kalari Rebellion began 3 months later. Then the Vorthan species joined the fight. Then the crystalline beings from the Andromeda sector. One by one, every species the Zephyrians had conquered rose up against their oppressors, armed with human weapons and trained by human soldiers. But it was not just about weapons and training. Humans brought something else to the galaxy, an idea that no alien species had ever truly understood. The idea that freedom was worth any cost, that slavery was wrong no matter who practiced it, and that some things were worth fighting and dying for. Dr. Elizabeth Chun, now 80 years old, worked from her laboratory on the human command ship. She had become the galaxy's leading expert on bioadaptation. Every time the Zephyrians created a new weapon or defense, she found a way for humans to counter it. "They have developed a new mind control system," she reported to the War Council. "It is more powerful than anything they have used before. It can control entire planets at once." "How long before you can develop a counter?" asked General Torres. "It is already done," Elizabeth replied with a tired smile. "I finished it yesterday. The radiation has changed us so much that their mind control technology cannot affect us at all anymore. But more than that, we can now turn their own devices against them." The proof came at the Battle of Arcturus Prime. The Zephyrians had gathered their largest fleet ever assembled, over 10,000 ships protecting their most important military base. They activated their new planet-wide mind control system, confident that it would paralyze any attacking force. Instead, the human fleet used the signal to take control of half the Zephyrian ships. The aliens found themselves firing on their own vessels, unable to understand how their most advanced technology had been turned against them. The battle was over in 6 hours. The Zephyrian fleet was destroyed. Their base was captured. Most important, humans had proven that no Zephyrian technology could stop them anymore. News of the victory spread across the galaxy at faster-than-light speed. On 1,000 worlds, enslaved species looked up at the stars and saw hope for the first time in centuries. The Zephyrian Empire, which had ruled for over 2,000 years, was crumbling. Emperor Kethver, supreme ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, stood in his palace on the capital world and watched the reports come in. Fleet after fleet destroyed, world after world lost. An enemy that grew stronger with every battle instead of weaker. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his council. "They were slaves. They were nothing. We lifted them from their primitive world and gave them purpose." "Perhaps," said his chief advisor quietly, "that was our mistake. We made them into something we could not control." "What do you recommend?" the emperor asked. "Surrender," the advisor replied. "Negotiate terms while we still can. The humans have shown mercy to species that joined them willingly. Perhaps they will show mercy to us as well." Emperor Kethver struck his advisor down with an energy blast. The Zephyrian Empire does not surrender to slaves. But in his heart, he knew the truth. The empire was dying. The species they had enslaved had become their destroyers. The humans had done more than just win a war. They had sparked a revolution that was spreading across the entire galaxy. On Earth, now the capital of the growing human confederation, children who had never known slavery played in parks where alien ships had once blotted out the sun. They grew up learning that freedom was not something to be given or taken away. It was something to be fought for and defended. Marcus Torres stood on the same spot where Commander Vextar had first addressed the conquered leaders of Earth. But instead of demanding surrender, Marcus was welcoming new allies to the fight for galactic freedom. "Today," he announced to representatives from 50 different species, "we do not just offer you weapons or ships or technology. We offer you something that the Zephyrians never understood. We offer you the knowledge that no one has the right to own another thinking being. We offer you the promise that together, we will build a galaxy where slavery is just a memory from a darker time." The war was almost over. But for humanity, the real work was just beginning. 5 years after the first human rebellion, Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the starship Liberation as it approached the Zephyrian homeworld. Behind her fleet stretched across the void like a river of stars. Human ships, Kalari vessels, Vorthan cruisers, and ships from a dozen other species that had joined the fight for freedom. The war was almost over. Only one target remained, Zephyros Prime, the capital world of an empire that had once ruled half the galaxy. Long-range sensors detect massive defensive positions around the planet, reported Commander Lou, Sarah's tactical officer. Energy, shields, orbital weapons platforms, automated defense grids. "They have turned their homeworld into a fortress," Sarah nodded. She had expected this. The Zephyrians would make their final stand here, using every weapon and every trick they had learned in 2,000 years of conquest. "And behind those defenses?" she asked. "Approximately 2 billion Zephyrian civilians," Lou replied quietly. Sarah felt the weight of those words. 2 billion lives. The same number of humans who had been taken from Earth as slaves. For a moment, she understood the temptation that had corrupted so many species before. The desire to make their enemies pay for every crime, every death, every year of suffering. But humans had learned something during their long enslavement that the Zephyrians never understood. They had learned the difference between justice and revenge. Open a channel to the planet. Sarah ordered. Emperor Keffer appeared on the main screen. He looked older than when the war began, his blue skin pale and his black eyes sunken with exhaustion. But his voice was still filled with arrogance and hate. "Have you come to accept our surrender?" he asked mockingly. "Do you think that we will beg for mercy from escaped slaves?" "No," Sarah replied calmly. "I have come to offer you what you never offered us, a choice." The emperor laughed, but it was not a happy sound. What choice could slaves possibly offer their masters? "The choice to live," Sarah said. "Surrender now. Order your fleets to stand down. Let your people evacuate to colony worlds where they can start new lives. Do this, and no Zephyrian need die today. And if we refuse?" Sarah's expression did not change. "Then you will learn what humans do to those who choose to enslave others." The emperor's image flickered with rage. "You forget who you are speaking to. We are the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. We will never surrender to animals that we pulled from the mud of a primitive planet." "Then you have made your choice," Sarah said, and cut the transmission. The battle for Zephyros Prime began at dawn, local time. The Zephyrian defenses opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams that could melt mountains, missile swarms that darkened the sky, quantum disruptors that could tear apart matter at the atomic level. The human fleet absorbed it all. Their shields, built from captured Zephyrian technology and improved by human engineering, held against the assault. Their ships, designed by minds that had learned to adapt and overcome any challenge, moved through the defensive fire like dancers avoiding raindrops. But the humans did not return fire on the planet itself. Instead, they began transmitting on every frequency that Zephyrian technology could receive. The message was simple and was broadcast in the Zephyrian language by Dr. Elizabeth Chun, now 90 years old, but still sharp as the day she was first enslaved. "People of Zephyros Prime," her voice echoed across the planet. "We are humans. Your government enslaved us for 50 years. They took us from our homes, separated us from our families, and worked us until we died. Many of you participated in this. Many of you profited from our suffering. On the planet below, billions of Zephyrians listened in their homes and workplaces, hearing the voice of a species they had been taught to think of as animals. But we are not here for revenge," Elizabeth continued. "We are here to offer you the same choice we offered your emperor. Lay down your weapons. Stop fighting. Choose to live in a galaxy where no species enslaves another. Choose to be part of something better than an empire built on suffering." In the cities below, something unprecedented began to happen. Zephyrian civilians started to surrender, not to save their lives, but because they had heard something in the human voice that their own leaders had never offered them: hope for a future built on cooperation instead of domination. The orbital defenses continued to fire, but now their targeting was confused. The human fleet had scattered throughout the system, moving in patterns that seemed random, but were actually precisely calculated. Every shot the Zephyrians fired missed. Every missile they launched was intercepted or redirected. Marcus Torres led the assault on the orbital fortress that protected the Emperor's palace. His ship, the Liberator, had been built in the asteroid belt where he had once been a slave. Now it cut through Zephyrian defenses like a sword through paper. "General," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving surrender signals from 60% of the planetary defense grid. They are powering down their weapons and opening their shields." Marcus smiled grimly. Even now, at the end of everything, humans were offering their enemies something the Zephyrians had never given to anyone: mercy. But Emperor Kethver was not finished. As human ships entered the atmosphere, he activated the ultimate weapon, something the Zephyrian Empire had held in reserve for 2,000 years. A device that could destroy an entire star system, killing everyone in it, human and Zephyrian alike. "If we cannot rule the galaxy," he screamed into his communicator, "then no one will." Sarah Chun detected the weapon's activation from orbit. She had 30 seconds before it fired. 30 seconds to save 2 billion Zephyrian lives and prevent the destruction of an entire star system. She did something that no Zephyrian could have imagined. She transported herself directly onto the Emperor's command ship, alone and unprotected, using technology that should have been impossible. The radiation that had changed humanity over 50 years had done more than make them immune to mind control or enhance their abilities. It had made them into something new, something that could exist in multiple dimensions at once, something that could move through space and time in ways that defied the old rules of physics. Sarah appeared in the Emperor's throne room like a ghost materializing from thin air. Kethver spun to face her, his weapon drawn, but froze when he saw her eyes. They glowed with the same inner light that had transformed all of humanity, but brighter, more intense. "You," he whispered. "What are you?" "I am what you made me," Sarah replied. "I am what your empire created when it chose to enslave a species that would never stop growing, never stop learning, never stop becoming something more than what it was." She reached out with her mind and simply turned off the Star Killer weapon. Not with technology, not with tools, but with the power that's sleeping in the depths of human consciousness and had been awakened by 50 years of exposure to alien energies. "It is over," she said gently. "Your empire is finished. Your people are free to choose their own future. And you, Emperor Kethver, are no longer anyone's master." The Emperor aged 50 years in that moment. The weight of his defeat, the knowledge of what his empire had become, the understanding that he had created his own destroyers, all crashed down on him at once. "What will you do with us?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The same thing we will do with every species in this galaxy," Sarah replied. "Give you the chance to be better than what you were." 6 months later, Sarah stood in the same place where Commander Vextar had first announced humanity's enslavement. But now the room was filled with representatives from 300 different species. Former slaves and former masters, sitting together, working together to build something that had never existed before. A galaxy governed by cooperation instead of conquest. The Zephyrian Empire was gone. In its place was the Galactic Confederation, led by principles that humans had learned during their darkest hours. That freedom was not something to be granted by the powerful, but something that belonged to every thinking being by right of existence. Emperor Kethver himself sat in the assembly, no longer an emperor, but simply another voice among many. He had chosen to live, chosen to learn, chosen to spend his remaining years helping to repair the damage his empire had caused. Sarah looked out at the gathered representatives who remembered the scared young engineer who had once fixed mining equipment on an asteroid station. She thought about all the humans who had died as slaves, never knowing that their sacrifice would lead to freedom for an entire galaxy. "Today," she announced to the assembly, "we do not celebrate the defeat of an enemy. We celebrate the birth of an idea, the idea that no species, no matter how powerful, has the right to own another. The idea that diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. The idea that the galaxy belongs to all of us, together." Outside the Great Hall, human children played with Zephyrian children, Kalari children, children from dozens of species that had once been enemies. They spoke each other's languages, shared each other's games, and grew up believing that the universe was a place where different did not mean dangerous. Humanity had won more than a war. They had won the chance to show the galaxy what they had always known, that the greatest strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to create, to forgive, and to build something better than what came before.